Thank you, Talei, for taking the time for meeting us today. And tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you and where you're from?
Oh, kia ora, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name's Talei Bryant. I'm 23 years old. I was born in Nelson and have been brought up here for the past 20 years in the Waimana Gorge. I'm part Fijian, part English, and I'm the eldest of 4 siblings.
Wow, that sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting background. And you have started a movement called Find Your Fish, Find Your Passion.
It's just called the Find Your Fish movement, with like the slogan sort of like find your fish, find your passion. And it pretty much means that we want to help people find their passion and then turn it into their profession.
Okay, and how did you start that? What made you have the idea?
I'm a part of a program. This is my 3rd year now being a part of the Future Leaders program, and that's a program run in 6 communities around New Zealand. And pretty much throughout the year you have like 3 huis that you go to. So the first one you go to as a catalyst, the second one your whole group goes and you go to Wellington to a place called Festival for the Future that Inspiring Stories hosts. And so in 2018 I went to that Festival for the Future, and I was at a real dark place in my life. And then anyway, I was just sitting in the back and the first speaker to come up, because it's like thousands of people, guest speakers, and Mehana Duru was the first speaker, and then he came out and he was talking about like Maui and his fish, and just about the Maui repetitively going out to the same spot at the same time, getting the same result. And then he was talking about how Maui just went out and did something different at a different time and ended up getting something really great. And pretty much the point of his speech, what he said was, if there's anything you remember from my speech, it is to find your fish. And I guess I took it pretty literally.
Yeah.
And after that I was just so inspired by that whole weekend. It was like coming from here in Whakatane, in a space where you go to high school, you've got your mates, you play sports, and after high school you either choose to go to uni, or you choose to go to Aussie and work there, or you choose to just do some local work here. But for me, I never really fit into any of those boxes. I did the dash in Aussie, I worked locally here, but I still wasn't fulfilled. And then I realised that I loved working with young people, I loved working in my community. So that's what I do now, is like run workshops, starting up to run programs and just travel around New Zealand with other rangatahi, meeting other rangatahi who are like doing awesome, I guess, like community-based work. Yeah.
And so you do this full time?
Yeah, so Find Your Fish, I do it out of my shed. Me and a few of my mates were this year, due to COVID, it's been really hard. One of our co-founders just had a baby, so she's resigned, and another one of our co-founders is popping in 4 weeks. Queenie over here, she's one of our top youth leaders who are helping, but we're pretty much prepping for next year.
Okay.
To start up some stuff.
How did you support people during lockdown and, with this whole chaos with COVID-19? How did you continue the support?
Just being open on Facebook, and had a few people messaging through the movement, and meeting a lot of people. I've found that mental health it really affects everyone. Like, I've had my own mental health struggles, everyone I know has had their own, and people don't really care about finding their passion because they're so trapped in their own thoughts. So I just, a couple of years ago, came out about, I guess, my depression and suicidal attempts, and then it opened up, it just opens up a door for a lot of people to talk to you.
Yeah.
And still through the Future Leaders program, which I'm still a part of this year, we made up like whānau hamper packs, so for these young people, like our babies from like 5 and up, and they had like colouring books, pens, pencils, a whole lot of cool stuff, like some baking boxes, some treats for them. And me and the crew, we came up with that for Future Leaders and delivered about 250 across the community. So that's how we sort of just helped during COVID, was keeping the rangatahi like entertained and busy.
Cool. Is there anything that you think that you learned from that period, from the COVID-19 period, that we would like to continue doing that you haven't done before?
Yeah, I think just like what I learned there personally was like, I just love gardening and being out and really focusing on stuff, on my sort of little passions, and to follow that more. But I think it also realised how much we can do with technology and how connected we can stay.
Yeah.
And just having more online chats and online calls with people in other communities across New Zealand. That's what I learned.
Yeah, great. And in terms of our conference today for the Hui Atu, our kaupapa matua is katohira karerehira. It's one day sets, another arises. How would you think your movement ties into that?
I think it ties in like when we started, it was sort of like not the old me, but just something in me sort of was like, okay, that's enough. No more just working 12-hour shifts to just make ends meet. Like you got to do something that you're passionate about. And then it just flipped and then ended up being like, okay, well, how can we do this? How can we do that? And pretty much like when I wrote to talk on this, it was turning nothing into something, which is what I had to do as a kid. You know, growing up in the bush, we just got told to go play outside, go play with sticks and turn games from nothing into something. And like this movement, for me, I'd never worked really with youth. I was quite active in my high school and stuff, but there was probably as much experience as I had. And then now 2 years later, you know, we've got people approaching us from all around New Zealand who want us to work with their youth. So I guess over the time, it's just been a whole lot of real ongoing, practical, hands-on sort of stuff.
How do you help? What do you think helps people find their passion? What do you do that they can't find, like, anywhere else?
When we first started, it's like drawing this little tree and it has like 3 little lines coming off, and the first one to help people was a whole lot of different workshops. So we do workshops based on things that people might not get the opportunities to do. So I guess it's sort of like a little bit of dabbling in work experience and a whole lot of different things like tourism, stuff that you wouldn't do around here, like creative arts, music, all that sort of stuff. So pretty much workshops on a whole bunch of really cool different job paths, so people can sort of be like, oh, I'm interested in this, or oh no, I'm not interested in this. And then as well as programs. So we currently have designed a suicide prevention and wellbeing program. I'm just waiting to get funding on it to run next year. That's like a 10-week program that's aimed at our young Māori and Pasifika men and women. And it's all about bringing them back to their roots, helping them find their identity, talking about colonisation, as well as teaching them to live off the land, pretty much being able to grow their own food, but also wanting to teach them about taxes, teaching them about how to save their money, and just all those life skills that we don't learn in school. And I think a lot of people coming out of school now are really realising, like when I left, I was like, I can vote now. But firstly, I don't know how government works. I don't understand all those different seats. I don't understand the different parties. So all of that sort of stuff is what we want to teach, but in a fun way.
Yeah.
And then the last one was just like a sustainable social enterprise. So for us to be able to fund all of this without having government funding is slowly, with different youth who want to start up their own businesses, do that so that the money that we make partly goes to that young person and them and developing themselves, and it pumps it back into the Find Your Fish programs, where we also do like school holiday programs and just like volunteer at a lot of different stuff. It's just young people want to get out there. If they go and volunteer, say for the Wild Food Festival, they might find that they're really interested in sort of event management and that sort of stuff. So that's the sort of opportunities we want to do, which is giving them an opportunity, which is also helping another community group or something like that.
Right, well done. And just as a final question, you mentioned that there are various things that aren't being taught in schools. Do you think they should be? And what else can teachers or kaiako and Tumuaki do to prepare ākonga for the future?
Yeah, I definitely think politics is something that should be taught in schools, and it shouldn't just be an optional class either. Like we should be learning that from babies' ages, from like year 6, year 7, year 8. They've got all these guides from Parliament that show how to teach that age, and I think it's really good because we've got politics everywhere. We've got it in our families, we've got it in our marae, we've got it in our schools, and I think it's just it's just really important, especially when we come out and then we've got older generations saying, you guys should be voting, and then the young people come out of school like, well, I don't even know how to enroll. Like, what's the point of me doing that? And then it comes back to as well, like money and maths. To me, I think we should be learning about budgeting. We should definitely learn about taxes and all of those sorts of things which actually affect our life, instead of learning how to build a ramp and like what does A equal, that sort of stuff. And then again, people learning how to cook for themselves and just how to do basic life skills pretty much.
What about resilience?
I think resilience comes back to where, as children, like how you deal with certain types of emotions. And as a kid, you're not really, like, teachers hear what other kids say to each other, but they don't really get pulled up. And then they don't go to the child that's been affected, and they don't sort of teach them. They sort of just pat them on the back and say, like, are you all right? Come over here if you need some time. But they don't, like, give them, I guess, coping mechanisms and sort of the right tools. Or some teachers might, but a lot of teachers probably don't. And that's why we get these children who grow up. Some can be less resilient than others. Some can just be very quiet and to themselves. And some of them could be dealing with a lot up here mentally, because they just don't know how to cope. And then, you know, a lot of students, a lot of young people, they can turn to smoking weed, to drinking heaps of alcohol. They can just turn to lashing out at other people. Whereas if they're sort of taught at a younger age how to cope with, I guess, the world setbacks or whatever life throws at them, whether it be people bullying them and stuff, then maybe they might be able to just let it go easier instead of holding on to that mama and just keeping it in here. So yeah, I guess it all just starts in the schools, and then I guess it starts when you go to high school, when you're talking about sex ed and all that sort of stuff. You know, I think we should also be talked about consent and safety and what is appropriate, because I know at high school, for myself and for a lot of my mates, we were touched inappropriately a lot by males because they thought that was cool, they thought that was all right and that was allowed. And as females, we didn't know that we could just be like, no, don't do that. But we're taught how to do all the other sort of stuff to keep us safe when we have sex, but we're not taught about, I guess, the talking part. Then we're not taught about why, you know, when you're going through puberty and you're going through that real tender age, you're not sort of told about all the different emotions that are going to come out, and I guess more coping mechanisms on how to deal with those. So I guess it's just a real tricky part. And now being a tutor myself, I see how overwhelming it is having to deal with, like, I've only got a class of about 15, sometimes 10, and even that is so much. So for these high school teachers, they got students rolling in, and then it would be really hard on them to fit all of that on top of their curriculum. But I think our school curriculum just needs a complete overhaul anyway. And that mental health should be something that's not only taught in PE and health and all that sort of stuff. It should be taught in all different aspects.
Well done. Thank you so much for your time, Talei.
Cool, thank you.
Lovely to meet you.